Welcome to the first meeting of the House Standing Committee on Economic Development and Workforce Investment of our 2025 session. I want to take a minute to welcome everybody this morning. Also want to welcome some of our new members, Representative Bowling, Representative Grossell, Representative Payne, Representative Lehman, and also Representative Griffey. I know he's here. He was with us a little bit last year, so you're kind of new, but not really. So anyway, just want to welcome our new members. Want to also take a minute to recognize our staff: Janine Coy, Austin Johnson, Matissa Robinson, Christian Dieter, and Sasha Allen. So really thank our staff. They keep us going. Couple things here before we get going. Just want to remind our audience that there are no signs in the committee room. Also, no vocal outbursts, clapping, reactions. We want our members to be focused on the legislation that's at hand and not necessarily on our audience. Members, when you are asking a question, please address the chair before asking that question. And we do this so that it's not a cross-examination of those who are testifying. So if you don't care when you want to ask a question, please address the chair first. New members, our veteran members know this, but I like to keep our meetings rolling and moving pretty good. So when you have a question, let's make sure we get to the question and get to the point of that. So with that, would any member seek recognition? Have any guests they want to recognize? Okay, seeing none. Sasha, please call the roll.
Representative Bowling. Here. Representative Callaway.
Here.
Representative Duval.
Here.
Representative Elliott. Representative Gentry.
Here.
Representative Griffey.
Here.
Representative Grossell.
Here.
Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative King.
Present.
Representative Kulkarni.
Present.
Representative Lawrence. Representative Lehman.
Here.
Representative Lockett.
Present.
Representative Payne.
Present.
Representative Sharp.
Present.
Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Truitt.
Here.
Vice Chair Huff. Chair Branscombe.
Here. We do have a quorum. All right, first item on the agenda today is House Bill 398. It's an act relating to occupational safety and health. Representative Walker Thomas, if you all come to the table. All right, if you all could, please make sure your microphones are pulled close. The green light is lit. If you could, state your names for the record.
Walker Thomas, District 8 down in Western Kentucky.
I'm Kate Shanks. I'm Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce.
And I'm Kyle Johnson. I'm an attorney at Frost Brown Todd.
Okay, welcome. And I do see that we do have a committee sub on this bill.
We do, Mr. Chairman. You should have it in your packets, and if so, I'd love to adopt the committee sub first.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Committee sub passes. House Bill 398 with committee sub is in front of us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members for braving this cold weather to be here this morning. When I took office back in January of 2017, our leadership decided to take bold measures to transform this Commonwealth to one of the most business-friendly climates in the country. This bill just shows our commitment to the business community while not jeopardizing the safety of our great employees that make everything work. Our governor almost makes daily announcements of new or expanding industries that are being announced. Since 2018, Kentucky's real gross domestic product grew 1.7% annual, which was nearly twice the growth rate in the preceding 5 years. In addition, Kentucky surpassed 2 million jobs on record for the first time in Kentucky's history in 2023 and continues adding jobs since then. To keep our businesses and attract new economic opportunities, legislatures must follow through on the progress they have made in past sessions to ensure worker safety while also creating fair and more transparent rules for employers. These proposed changes will help align Kentucky's occupational health and safety rules with federal standards, support businesses in responding to claims, and improve regulatory compliance for all parties. I do have
We have a motion and a second. You guys can continue on, or?
Been here long enough, sir.
Okay, all right. We do have some questions. Representative Lafferty.
So will this change our structure of offices that we may have in Kentucky that protect Kentucky workers?
Deal. Either one.
Representative, I can answer that question. So Kentucky is a state occupational safety and health plan. We do have a state plan. We're not overseen by the federal OSHA. This bill does not make any of those changes. We will continue to have a state office that operates as it does today. This is specific to ensuring that we are following the federal regulatory framework related to occupational safety and health. But we will still continue to have those employees and that state agency working on the enforcement piece.
So we don't worry with all the federal layoffs that we're seeing that this will affect OSHA offices in Kentucky.
I don't believe so because those are state offices. There are actually 29 states that have a federal program where it is just the federal occupational safety and health that oversees what they do related to safety and health. They follow those regulations specifically. We have some states that are state plans that have similar legislation or statutes on the books. But in that case, I think those are the decisions of the General Assembly to continue to manage those offices versus DC.
Okay.
Representative Cole Carney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a pretty simple question, since everything went pretty quickly this morning. Just what is the difference between the original bill and the sub?
We had to add Section 7, that was the de minimis citation. It didn't clarify it too much, so that is part of the changes. I do want to let the members know, even in the sub, there was a typo, and it's literally one letter that we will fix it on the floor. That was, let me see here. Do we know what page?
It's
that was?
bottom of page 3. Employer should read employee, the very bottom. So we that will be fixed.
We will do amendment on the floor to fix that one change there. It's employers or employees instead of employers, and we're going to fix that. So those are really the main thing was just clarifying. Do you need to elaborate or any of it? Is that kind of a good synopsis?
Representative Lehman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative Thomas, for coming here today. You mentioned a lot about the economic growth, which has been pretty astounding the last few years. I'm just trying to understand the background of this bill. What are we trying to accomplish? Is there a specific problem, industry, business that's
just
not growing in Kentucky or had to close or didn't move here? It feels very abstract to me.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to understand what specific issue are we solving in Kentucky? Thank you.
It's more so to try to line everything up so businesses have a reference points of the regulations with the federal government. We do have federal OSHA, and with the state having a Kentucky OSHA, sometimes that can be confusing.
Yeah, we want to be sure that our regulations follow federal. We have a very well-defined federal program with regard to safety and health, and so it's an opportunity for us to streamline and ensure that consistency, which you'll see in other states, the vast majority of other states.
Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, proceed.
So I just declare there isn't a specific business or situation or industry that is affected adversely by the current situation. This is a environment, try to clean up the business environment.
It's a
type of
broad-based
thing.
business issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Representative Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of going along with Representative Kulkarni, I'm trying to understand the change. I've got a lot of pushback from my district here, so I don't know if they've seen this committee sub. So I'm trying to understand specifically why did we do the sub? Who called for the sub?
Go ahead and elaborate on that. Yeah.
The purpose of the de minimis exception is the federal government, through the federal program, recognizes the issuance of notices, de minimis violation notices, where there's not a substantial or material impact on employee safety or health. and those are notices that are issued with $0 penalties. And so the revision to Section 7 clarifies and provides a definition for what is a de minimis violation, and clarifies through that section that there would be no penalties associated with that type of notice.
Okay, that doesn't answer who called for that, who wanted this in here.
This was a sub that we worked on, Representative. So the sub specifically, in addition to the de minimis, there's, I think, a definition that was clarified. So after the bill was filed, we heard from others in the field that we could clarify some specific aspects. So that's what the sub did. So there's a definition in terms of, the secretary or his or her designee would be affected by it. The de minimis piece, we felt we needed to clarify that it would in fact not carry penalty to be consistent with federal. So it was just some of the language once the bill was filed where it was like, well, we could be more specific. And so let's go ahead and do a committee sub to work on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Grossel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is a question around what qualified representative means in terms of definition. Is that something that was cleared up in the sub?
It's actually, qualified representative is actually defined in Section 1 of the bill. So it specifically means a person who is reasonably necessary to conduct an inspection based on their relevant scientific, technical, and specialized knowledge, skill, experience, training, and education. So the entire term of qualified representative was defined in the legislation. And we feel like that adds, again, some of that clarity so that those decisions on who is involved in an inspection can be made by the cabinet, by the commission, and ensuring that that's defined appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And if I may, one more question.
Yes, you may.
Inspections cannot occur without a qualified representative from the company present. Are there any parameters around timelines and ensuring that folks can line up their schedules to be present so that inspections may occur?
Thoughts on that, Kyle, practical standpoint?
So under this bill and under current practice, there is the agency has to give the employer the opportunity to be present for the inspection as just a practical matter. That typically means that they'll give 45 minutes to an hour for an employer to have their representatives to be present for that inspection.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. And looks like we have some folks who are going to speak in opposition of the bill. So if they could come up, and Dustin Reinstedler, if you come to the table.
Chair, I'm also signed up. Is it all right if I sit?
You can. Yeah, come on. Since you're both sitting at the table together, if you could state your name and who you're with, each one of you, that'd be great. If you could pull the mic up, make sure it's lit. I think you guys are familiar with this.
Hey everyone, Dustin Reinstedler, President, Kentucky State AFL-CIO.
Gerald Adkins, Working Strategies 2 on behalf of the Kentucky State Building and Construction Trades Council.
Okay, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. We gather today because we're reminded that the issue at hand is not just a bill, it's a matter of life and death and of dignity and fairness for the hardworking men and women of Kentucky. And while I'm not an expert on OSHA, I do represent over 100,000 union workers, and I have a mindset for all workers in Kentucky to go home safely every day after work. House Bill 398 threatens the very foundation of workplace safety in our state, and its impact will be felt in every factory, every construction site, every workplace where Kentuckians earn their living. The labor movement has always been a voice for those who build, who sweat, and who sacrifice, and today that voice is loud because House Bill 398 represents a direct attack on the protections that have been hard-won by generations of workers in Kentucky. This bill is not just simply a technicality, it's a direct assault on the workers of Kentucky. It weakens the state's ability to protect workers from unsafe condition. It reduces accountability for employers. It removes essential rights to report retaliation, and it shifts the balance of power in favor of employers at the expense of the people who show up to work every day to do the work that powers this state. Kentucky workers deserve better, and we must stand together to make sure they get that. A personal story of mine, although I'm not an OSHA expert, I come from construction, and unfortunately, in 2006, was on a job site. We were building a power plant in Gent, Kentucky, and a person that was working for another contractor next to us, we were building the same project, fell 65 feet to their death. Although that was 2006, it's something that still lives with me. It's pretty hard to go through and think about. I try not to, but things like this you have to. I can't describe to you the chaos that happened that day when it happened, and then we had to take off work for investigations and so on. Then come back and finish building the project. It's I just want to try to remind everybody that we have OSHA protections for a reason. It's why we have guards on things. It's why we have protective equipment. And I just think Kentucky deserves better. You see videos of third world countries and people wearing saran wrap for a face shield. People wearing flip-flops while they're jackhammering. And we're not a third world country. We've fought really hard to have what we have here. And I ask you to please consider that when we think about protecting our Kentucky workers. Thanks.
Good morning, Chair Branscombe and committee members. Again, my name is Gerald Adkins, and thank you for allowing me to testify today. I'm with Working Strategies 2, and today I'm testifying on behalf of the Kentucky State Building and Construction Trade. The screen went back off. Sorry about that. Director Chad Mills was unable to be here today, and I'm testifying on his behalf. I am by no means an expert on Kentucky's occupational safety and health laws. However, I did work 20 plus years at the Kentucky Labor Cabinet Wage and Hour Division, where I was the program director for the last 15 years of my career. During my years at the cabinet, I was made aware of many cases over the years where serious injuries up to and including death occurred at workplaces across the Commonwealth due to either not having KOSHA required standards in place to protect their workers or wasn't ensuring that their workers were following these standards. Additionally, I currently have clients who have I have clients who have reached out to me over the last 6 years since I've been in this role with very sad stories of co-workers, members who have died on the job due to OSHA standards not being followed and wanting to know if I could help them with the process of reporting to KOSHA. One of those examples is I had a client member reach out to me about a trench. This was a water employee who was digging a trench, down in the trench working, and the trench collapsed due to the standards not being followed. That employee did not survive. Every story that I hear from my clients' members brings tears to my eyes that someone lost their family member due to negligence. In 2021, this body proposed and passed language to prevent KOSHA from adopting or promulgating any future OSHA regulation that is more stringent than federal law, with the language of the 2021 law not addressing Kentucky standards that were already in place. Yet here we are again in 2025, introducing language to not only take away those Kentucky employee protections that were in place prior to 2021, but House Bill 398 goes much further in the attack on workers. Current KOSHA law has an appeal process in place that allows citations to be appealed to Franklin Circuit Court. House Bill 398 goes further, stating that Franklin Circuit Court may award actual expenses incurred, including court costs and attorney fees, against KOSHA with no caps. This no doubt will curtail the ability to issue citations and will be financially incalculable for Kentucky's taxpayers. While there are many other dangerous provisions in this legislation today, I am testifying on behalf of the 18,000 members of the Kentucky State Building and Construction Trades Council who on a daily basis are on construction sites all over Kentucky. Current law permits those members to request an inspection of an employer who is permitting or requiring their employees to work in violation of current OSHA standards, which could result in physical harm or imminent danger. House Bill 398 would prevent them from requesting an inspection unless they are a current employee or qualified representative authorized by a current employee. More importantly, should an employee die on the job due to a violation of OSHA standards, House Bill 398 would prevent their parent, their spouse, or next of kin the ability to request an inspection of that employer. It is important that we protect workers. We shouldn't be passing laws that make them more vulnerable. We hope to work with Representative Thomas and the rest of the Kentucky legislature on amendments to make this a better bill, and asking you to please vote no today on House Bill 398. Thank you, Chair Branscombe and committee members, for allowing me to testify today.
Thank you, gentlemen. Representative Elliott.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to both of you. I appreciate you being here. The thought occurred to me that one of the built-in assumptions I think that seems to me that you are making is that the federal OSHA standards are not sufficient to protect workers, because that's what this bill would basically align us with, is the federal standard. We couldn't go beyond that. So is that the position that you're taking, that the federal regulations that we have are not necessarily sufficient to protect our workers?
I don't know if this will answer your question or not, but this is, in my opinion, again, I'm not an OSHA expert, so don't quote me on this, but in my opinion, Kentucky has industries that are specific to Kentucky. For example, the bourbon industry. The bourbon industry may have a job that has some dangers that other states don't have, and federal OSHA doesn't adopt that language. So I think it's important when there's a standard that Kentucky has adopted that we don't do away with those just because it's a more stringent or indicative of one particular trade or the bourbon industry, for example.
May I have a follow-up, Mr. Chairman? Would you be able to provide me with those areas where you believe the federal standards are not stringent enough, or not, they don't go far enough to protect our workers? I know you mentioned the bourbon industry. Is this, just in a handful of areas, or in a lot of areas? But if you would provide that to me, I would like to see that, because I would like to think our federal standards are, I'm not an expert on OSHA either. My mother had a workplace injury when I was in grade school, so I'm empathetic and sympathetic to our workers who face those challenges. She had to go through the workers' compensation system and hire a lawyer. So, I'm very aware of how that process works. But I would like to see where you think our federal standards are insufficient to protect our workers, because I think this is just obviously aligning us with federal standards, and we're not going to go any more stringent than what federal OSHA is. So I would like to see that, if you can provide that to me. Go ahead.
So we definitely wouldn't be the expert on doing that, but I think there's another person signed up from the cabinet possibly that could answer that question. I do appreciate the question, and thank you for bringing that.
Representative Cole Carney.
That was my main question. I think somebody from the Education and Labor weigh in, so I just was going to ask your indulgence to let them. I don't know if they're here, but somebody, yeah, they are here. They just requested to weigh in, if that's okay. I was just going to ask if you could give them a few minutes.
To weigh in with these gentlemen?
On the issue, on the bill.
Okay, they're not signed up to speak.
I apologize. I thought there was other people signed up to speak.
No. Representative Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Part of my question was asked already, and I'm certainly not an OSHA expert at all. But according to your testimony, the way it sounded like is that you believe that the federal standards for OSHA are even subpar compared to what we have here in Kentucky. Would that be a correct statement?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I will say that I don't think they're subpar, but I think there's definitely additional protections that would help.
And that would go to those certain industries that you were speaking about before.
So I'm not positive on how many standards were in place prior to 2021 that weren't done away with with the legislation in 2021, but I think it was a very small percentage. And so those particular standards that are being done away with House Bill 398, I would have to study all those to know exactly if those should be kept or not. But if it wasn't done away with in the 2021 legislation, to come back now and to try to do away with it, it just seems like we're taking more protections away. But in addition to that, yes, I think there's particular industries that we need to pay attention to.
Just a quick follow-up.
Go ahead.
So it is my understanding that in this bill, it's basically aligning Kentucky standards with the federal standards. And I would like to hear from both of you, is that your understanding of this bill as well?
Again, not an OSHA expert, but my understanding is that Kentucky's OSHA is better than the federal standards, and we would like to see the higher standards for our workers.
But is that your understanding of this bill, what this bill does, that it is just aligning Kentucky standards with federal standards?
In general, possibly, but I think there are a few things in there that I'm not, educated on enough to give an answer on that.
Okay. Representative Lehman.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Just,
Proceed.
And on the topic we're speaking about, I believe all of us would have received a letter from Secretary Link from the Education and Labor Cabinet. So I would just point out, he specifically highlights industries where Kentucky and federal laws differ in areas such as high voltage electric lines, bulk hazard liquid unloading, employee exposures to hazardous material protections. And those are the areas he was specifically concerned about. He also highlights several areas of this bill that he's concerned. So it's being presented as a situation where we're just trying to bring Kentucky into compliance with OSHA, but he points out several areas of concern that he has that this bill would actually be not in compliance with federal OSHA standards. So I encourage all the members to take a quick look on that letter that you would have received by email. Thank you.
Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I wasn't planning on asking any questions this morning. This is a difficult subject for me. But in light of the questions that are going on around me, if you would allow me to comment on this issue of federal OSHA standards and state standards. In the United States of America, we have states' rights in our Constitution that apply to several different areas. We're talking about OSHA standards today. There are federal OSHA standards, but states have the rights to have a program with more stringent standards than the federal standards, because they may have an industry or business that has jobs that might be more hazardous and that might not be covered by the federal standards, which tend to be more broad. Why do we want to relinquish? Let me ask you this question, I'm sorry. Why do we want to relinquish our state's rights to have that opportunity in case we have industries like that, or we might have industries like that in the future?
I don't know why, and I apologize everyone for getting a little emotional earlier. It's something I haven't talked about in a long time, and that I had been through that. And Representative Gentry, I know you've also had a workplace injury, obviously, and you're tougher than I am, But whether you have strong protections or stronger protections or federal protections, things still happen. You're still put in. To earn a living, you're still put in bad situations. The fact that we want to make that worse and harder on workers and put them potentially in greater danger and not have protections or the ability to say something or report something, I don't know why we'd want to do that.
Thank you for that answer, and I agree with you. It just, why do we want to relinquish a state's right that is given to us in case we need to use it? That's all. Thank you.
Any other member? Representative Callaway.
Just make one quick comment. There is a process for any state to work with federal OSHA if there is something industry specific, and they could petition them and work through the process to get regs promulgated for a industry specific to a state. So I just want to point that out, that there is a process to make that happen.
Thank you. Okay. There being no further questions, we have a motion and a second. Sasha, please call the roll.
Representative Bowling? Yes. Representative Callaway?
Yes.
Representative Duval?
Yes.
Representative Elliott?
Briefly explain my vote, Mr. Chairman. I'm
Yes.
going to vote aye in the committee, and then I may change my vote on the floor. Aye.
Representative Gentry?
Explain my vote, please.
Yes, sir.
I didn't ask any questions of the bill sponsor. I have a lot of respect for the bill sponsor. And quite frankly, I didn't ask any questions because there wouldn't be any answers that would suffice me on this bill, short of, I'm sorry, and this bill's not going to move any further. But I know it will. Just like the 47 other anti-worker bills that have passed the House since I came here when the House majority took over in 2017. So I'm voting no today because I believe in helping, not harming our workforce. I think our men and women workers are the backbone of every business because they are the ones that produce and deliver the products and services these businesses sell. And I don't understand why we're relinquishing rights that are given to us, states' rights. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Griffey?
Yes.
Representative Grossel?
I'd like to explain my vote, please.
Yes.
I appreciate y'all for coming and expressing concern on both sides of this issue. I have some concerns, particularly with Section 5, where employers, not the employee, have the power to delegate an employee's qualified representative. Another concern I have in Section 5 is that this bill would strip away the ability of a parent or spouse in dismemberment and fatality cases to issue a request for a safety inspection on a family member's behalf. And so while I do want to be cooperative with the business community and bring us up to speed with the federal standards, I also have deep respect for those families of the workers. I'm a yes today, but I may change my vote on the floor. I'm hoping for an amendment to make Section 5 more palatable. Thank you.
Representative Huff? Representative Jackson?
Yes.
Representative King?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Kulkarni?
Briefly explain.
Yes, ma'am.
I also share several concerns, and I'm going to be a no for today. Specifically, as Representative Grossel mentioned in Section 5, where you have to, the only people that can request an inspection are current employees or qualified representatives, which means no family members and no former employees who may have information or context about historical violations that may have taken place in a particular workplace. I think that restricts the ability of individuals who are otherwise very relevant to a situation and an injury that may have taken place who would be shut out of this process. I'm hoping that the sponsor will listen to some of the concerns that we have and that have been raised in this committee and work on modifying or tightening up the language so that no additional harm comes to our Kentucky workers. So I'm a no for today. Thank you.
Representative Lawrence? Representative Lehman?
No.
Representative Lockett?
Yes.
Representative Payne?
Yes.
Representative Sharp?
Explain my vote.
Yes, sir.
I've got concerns also, as such as Representative Elliott, Representative Kulkarni, and Representative over there. I can't remember your name off the top of my head. I'm going to pass today, and I reserve my. I don't know what I'm going to do on the floor. I need to know some the information that Representative Elliott has asked for and see where we're at from there. Thank you.
Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Explain my vote, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I vote no today because I believe we owe a greater duty to our workers in Kentucky. I've certainly seen their commitment to us in recent days when Eastern Kentucky has been flooded underwater. We have crewmen sleeping on cots. We have crewmen working days. We have crewmen working nights. And that's all to help Eastern Kentucky, and that happens across our Commonwealth every day. So I'm a solid no.
Representative Truitt.
Yes.
Chair Branscombe.
Yes. House Bill 398, as amended by House Committee Sub 1, passes with favorable expression that same should pass. Committee, there being no further business before us, we are